So let's start off very simply that communities, social systems are highly organised and people in them have roles, relationships that are well structured and organise the social situation. Now, it would be a long topic, but I'd like to put forward that we can't function effectively unless we are in an organised social situation with roles and expectations and codes and culture and so on. I think it's hard to even think clearly when you're completely out of your element. If you've ever travelled overseas and been in a place where you just didn't get what was going on, it's very hard to adopt a philosophical kind of analytical way of thinking. You're really scrabbling around for cues as to what to do next. And so what I want to highlight here is the bonding, the notion of bonding. We are bonded into social systems. We're bonded in here now, but we don't have to reflect on it. Because that's stable and you understand this situation, you are free to ignore all of that and put all your attention on what I'm saying. And therefore, you are bound by a set of common assumptions. Now, here's an important point. An assumption is not conscious. We don't have to process something that's assumed. We don't have to process anything that is stable and unchanging. But those features of our experience provide the frame of reference within which we can unfold our conscious engagement with our environment. And my definition of a trauma is an event that irreversibly destroys some kind of assumption, or what I would call constancy, which means it goes beyond the cognitive. Constancies relate to any area of our experience. And so now here's an important point. You don't know what constancies are operating here. We could think of some of them. Did any of you consider for even a short moment you might die on the way here? You did? Go on, hands up, those who flitted through their mind. Did I make my will?
No, I was too busy concentrating on the chocolate shop.
Yeah. What constancies do you have here that allow you to devote yourself to the learning experience? You don't know until they're shattered. I'm still working with the man who was in the room next door to the room where the Monash shootings occurred. And I can tell you, if a shady-looking character like Peter suddenly looked disgruntled and went under his chair and started fumbling in his bag, my client would look very attentively to see what he was going to get out of it, right? And he wouldn't relax until he saw him bring his hanky out below his nose. Or if he saw the gleam of some slight metallic thing, he might go into high arousal, get ready to be shot, because it's never very far away from him the possibility that in a totally benign environment, particularly at a university, someone might pull out a gun and start shooting. Now, there are some interesting reasons why he's not able or wasn't able to very rapidly contextualise that as a very unlikely event, that only certain types of people do it, etc., etc. But that's another story. So, this is one of the important points about the whole field of trauma and disaster, I think, is that we don't understand the way in which fundamental psychosocial assumptions and constancies are irreversibly destroyed. And we've got to build new ones. How do we build them in the first place? By repeated exposure to the same thing so often that it becomes habitual and we don't need to pay any attention to it. And that's why certain features of traumatic recovery must involve repeated experiences of the same thing. A lot of fire-affected people are going to have to go through 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 summers with 42-degree days and north winds, and nothing happens before they can relax. So let's think about this. They can't tell you what constancies are shattered. They can show you, but they can't tell you because they didn't realise they were there. What they can do is talk about the consequences of that shattering. What we have to do is analyse the structure that's been damaged and give them a way of beginning to rebuild it and contextualise it so that it's realistic. Yes, occasionally people pull out guns and start shooting, but not very often. There's certain types of people in certain situations that do it. So let's come back to the community. We've got a structure. We say a community is a largish group in one place in communication, interdependent. There's a social structure, culture, stable, provides security. What's the social structure here? It's very simple. I talk, you listen. Right? Until one of the committee talks and they're running the show, so I'll listen to them and you'll listen to them. Right? Until somebody from the university administration comes in and says something, then we'll all listen to them. Right? So there are various... And you don't need a very complex structure for the situation to be workable, but you do need some kind of structure. What happens if we've got no structure at all? Where would you find a large group of people in one place, interdependent, involved with each other, with no structure?
Party.
Pardon?
Party.
A party? Yep. Except as a host.
Bullfight.
A bullfight. Or in Melbourne? Yeah, a shopping centre, a train, in a street, in a bus, in a football ground. Right? What do we call that? A crowd. What are the psychological characteristics of crowds? Impulsive, emotionally contagious, expression of irrational inability to test reality and be rational and evaluate information. The most dominating, beautiful, wealthy, attractive, or otherwise prestigious person is likely to be the leader, regardless of their qualifications or capacity. Isn't it? In a crowd. It's totally arbitrary who becomes leader. And so all we need for crowd psychology to come into play is an absence of structure. This shows me that social structure is the invisible precondition for cognitive competence, because I can tell you I'm the president of the Australian Association of Group Psychotherapists. Our job is understanding groups and working with them. But a group of group psychotherapists without a structure can become just as much a crowd as a group of Collingwood supporters on a bad day. I reckon our Western culture has a very inadequate understanding of the vital role of social fabric, social connectedness in sustaining our cognitive, emotional, personality, identity, etc., etc.